Welcome back to the Mr. Manhood podcast. In this episode, I'll be covering having the difficult conversation. It took me a while to actually make this podcast episode because this is something that a lot of people, including myself, and probably the person listening to this, struggles with. And so I wanted to make sure that the information that I was going to put out and what I was going to say was going to be relevant to as wide of a cast of people as possible. And so having a difficult conversation is something that I realized that here in America, a lot of people struggle with. And some other nations I have realized that it's there, but maybe not so prevalent. But definitely in this country, I have learned that a lot of people just aren't comfortable facing the truth from someone or someone just being honest because it can come off as mean and a myriad of other terms to explain or to make someone feel like well, that was too much. I've heard a million times from people all over the world that say, I just want someone to be real with me. I want someone to tell me how it is and to be honest with me. We all hear people say that. And then when everyone tests the waters. They'll test how far they can go, and in some ways, they'll joke about it as a joke, as a serious joke. But it's a joke just to kind of see how far they can go, and that's typically how people test the waters on how far they can go with being serious with you about certain things. But touching on this subject, I want to start it off with an experience that I recently had while I was on the phone with a family member of mine, and we were talking about her life and the decisions that she's made and things that she's done in her life and her regrets in life. And I started to realize that whenever we talked about the adverse times in her life, she had a crutch response. And her crutch response typically was, well, I just wasn't blessed with that gift. That just wasn't what I was supposed to be able to do. I'm not good at that. So in that situation, I basically constantly heard many times of all the reasons why something wasn't going to work in her life and why she ended up walking away from great opportunities or a budding opportunity to make a difference. And then now she's at the age where she's looking back over her life and she's regretful that she didn't go further at that time. And of course, this is someone that I love dearly, someone that I call every weekend. And I had to have a difficult conversation. And I had to lay it out because the truth is, well, there are things that people are afraid to walk into, opportunities that people are afraid to even delve in because of the fear that what if this doesn't work out? But there is no growth without trying and failing. On the path to success, there will always be hardships. And also, hinging on that, most people just simply don't know how powerful fear really is. It's a very scary thing, and it's other than love in this universe, the only thing just as strong or a little bit weaker than love is fear. And it's generally made up of past experiences, not necessarily what it is or what it could potentially be for you. It typically boils down to, I'm afraid that this might happen to me. And so that keeps us held back from a lot of great things that we could partake in, a lot of great opportunities that we could go down. We just simply don't go because fear is so powerful. And it's even gotten to the point now where there are many families that's had generational feuds that could just simply be wrapped up or even concluded with just having a difficult conversation, talking about how you felt, talking about what actually happened from both sides of the spectrum. Most of us would rather just have our side, and then the other party would just have their side of what they believe of all of what happened, and then they never talk to discuss what actually happened and what intentions were. I mean, there's a lot. I know many people, including myself years ago, where I spent years resenting someone because I was waiting for them to apologize. I was waiting for them to say, I'm sorry. And it never came. And I resented them for that. I couldn't believe so much time had gone by and they didn't say sorry. And then I realized, well, I have the power to discuss with that person how I feel also. It doesn't have to be from them. And even if they're not ready to have the full on conversation, I am ready to have the conversation to let them at least know my half of the story. So we'll always have something that we're nervous about talking to someone about, or to open up a dialogue that we may feel like will go bad, or even not go as planned. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly normal to have that thought. But many times suffering goes many, many years. And in the long run, you're only hurting yourself for that whole time. And then if you have kids, and you keep your kids from certain parts of the family because of your own problems with certain family members. If there are family members who are doing bad things to other family members, well, then there's nothing wrong with bringing that up to everyone. That's the only way that it's going to be resolved. And sometimes, not all the time, some actions will take place that will prevent those things in the future from happening. But most of us just simply never have the conversation because it's a difficult conversation to have. And even going on the psyche of when someone does something wrong to someone and they know that they've done something wrong to someone, typically later on in the well, the more time that actually passes, the more time that actually goes by, it becomes harder and harder to say sorry or to address it, because then the guilt of this took this long for you to call me or for you to tell me that I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. I was young, or two, I just didn't know, or three, I was in a bad place in my life. And that happens to everyone because we all get there at certain points in our lives where we're just going through a very difficult time, and we can lash out at someone or do something wrong to someone. And what makes it even worse is as time goes by, when we don't say anything to that person about how we felt, or about the newfound mindset that we're in, when we're reflecting back over what happened before and all this time has passed on, it could be very difficult to call someone and say, hey, I'm sorry. At this time in my life, I just wasn't in a good place. So what's one of the best ways that I've learned, or that I've seen and or studied on how to deal with having a difficult conversation with someone? One of the best ways that I've ever seen is just simply write it down. Write a letter to someone, right? Because even the fear, because no matter how you do it, that's why text messaging is so powerful, because even if someone is not ready to get certain bits of information, well, you send it in all in one message, so they have to read the whole thing. And and if you like to, express your sorrow or your gratitude or your different mindset or whatever the case may be, if you can write it down and either mail it to them, drop it off at their door, if it's too much to actually talk it through with them, and that way you actually get it off your chest. And sometimes just letter writing yourself, just actually going through the process of saying what you want to say and and taking your time by hand writing it out gets a lot of the emotions off of yourself. And it really, really helps. I've done it many times in my life, and I do recommend that to you also. One thing that I typically ask myself in certain situations is if today was my last day on this earth, would it be worth it? Would me waiting this long really be worth it to actually tell someone that I'm sorry or to let them know how I felt? Would it be worth it? And if it's not worth it, well, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to that person. I hope this podcast episode was very helpful to you. I hope we then grow to make the better decisions in our lives to become better people. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.